I'd now like to request Mr. Ramanan to start the proceedings.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this call. My name is Ramanan. I'm the Mission Director of Athel Innovation Mission. First of all, I hope that every one of you who is attending the call are safe and sound and following all the necessary safeguards and preventive practices in this COVID-19 crisis. And I hope all your families are also doing well. We are going through very difficult times, and it is but natural that all of us are a little apprehensive about not only the current days, about the days to come, and especially all the startups, all the incubators. We are a nation of startups. We have more than 30,000 startups in our country. And we all are naturally worried, not only for the future about our startups, but also about what is in store for our country as a whole and for the world at large. And therefore, it is my pleasure and privilege also to have a very distinguished person to participate in these deliberations and this reflection on what the future holds in terms of startups, in terms of innovations, in terms of the challenges that we are going to face in the months ahead, and the opportunities also that it throws open. I'm very glad to welcome Dr. Dipanvita Chattopadhyay, who is the chairman and CEO of the IKP Knowledge Park. It is the erstwhile ICI Knowledge Park, and it is one of the first. She's one of the first leaders in establishing such a park for promoting life science research in India. She's also been recognized as the Women Achiever of the Decade by Life Sciences and by the Women Economic Forum, as well as Women Achievers of the Year by Asia One Magazine, Business Magazine. So we are very delighted to have you, Ms. Dipanvita, on this particular call, and thank you so much for your time and your participation. I'm sure we are going to find all the people who are attending this call very much to benefit from your own suggestions, ideas, with your rich experience that you have had in the world of incubation, startups, and entrepreneurs. So before I proceed further, I'd like Ms. Dipanvita to introduce herself a little more in detail and about the work that she is doing in the Knowledge Park, and she is also involved in many government programs. She's particularly assisting the Niti Aayog as well as the Athel Innovation Mission in a number of ways in being able to fashion and decide the course of innovation and entrepreneurship over the years to come. So, Ms. Dipanvita, a little bit of introduction about yourself and anything that you'd like to initially share.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramanan. It's been a privilege to be part of this webinar today. Just not because it is a chat between you and me. We can talk otherwise, but it's so important to hear the voices of the startups, the entire ecosystem. And today I understand we have a large number of Atal incubation centers and the established incubation centers here to also see, can we come out with how to navigate this unprecedented pandemic that has struck us and globally, and what is to be done. I've been in this field for the last 20 years. So many of the people here maybe in this room know me. So I think I don't need to talk about myself. I just wanted to tell you that we have in the country around 350 incubators now. And there are more than a dozen research parks and science parks. So we are lucky to have, we are privileged to have both a science park, a research park, and several incubators. Actually, we have 9 incubators across Karnataka and Telangana, mainly in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and in some other cities like Bangalore, Shimoga, Belgaum, and so on and so forth. But what is also important is that we work, because we have a Bairak Regional Innovation Center, we work with 23 clusters across India. And that gives us an access to a large number of very early stage entrepreneurs. And I must say, if there is one good thing that this pandemic has actually revealed, is that we have been able to, in the last 7 to 10 years, develop an ecosystem of innovators. Because the amount of response that I'm seeing, this would not, I think it would not have been possible 10 years back. If a pandemic like this had struck us 10 years back, we wouldn't have got the kind of response from. So I think we as a country has proven ourselves, to us, not to anybody else, that yes, there is a whole army of innovators in the country. And if we have to win this battle, we have to win it together. And we have a very large number of people wanting to participate, wanting to contribute, wanting to help in terms of bringing out products and so on and so forth. We can always talk of what the gaps are. And we may, during the course of discussion, we'll talk about it. But I want to hear from you. What do you see in terms of the startup ecosystem taking a forefront in this fight against COVID?
Yeah. So, thank you, Ms. Vanita. And I think what you pointed out was absolutely correct. We have indeed become a startup nation, and not surprisingly, if you look at our demographic dividend that we have more than 1.4 million school students, schools in our country. We have more than 10,500 engineering related institutions. We have 39,000 colleges. We have 150 million students entering into the workforce, and we are a country with more than 65% of our country under 35 years old. So we have this youthful force, and which is becoming increasingly knowledgeable, which is having the benefits of higher education, and who now are poised to contribute a whole lot more through opportunities enabled by creating an innovative ecosystem in our country. And that has been the focus of the government, I would say, over the last few years, or I would say even over the last 7 to 8 years, where this tremendous focus on creating and promoting an innovation ecosystem, whereby young students who have new ideas, new innovators, budding innovators, who have an aspiration to be able to not just seek the first job that they get, they will always get the first job because we are very talented people, but the opportunity to actually create solutions and create new job opportunities and become job creators has never been better in our country at any point in history, in our own history, and I would say over the recent times. So this has been a very strong focus of the government. And as you rightly mentioned, today we have over 350 incubators in our country. Atal Innovation Mission itself was launched just 2-3 years ago in full operation. And over the last 2 years, more than 100 incubators have been selected to be operationalized, and 66 of them are completely operational today with more than 1,500 startups. And that's a fantastic response. But I want to bring the attention to what you said, and that is in the pandemic that we are facing, it is incredibly encouraging, at least for me when I see it, because we are coordinating a sort of a search for COVID-related solutions which can be immediately deployed over the next 3 to 6 months. And what we did was a team of directed by the PSA as well as Dr. Vinod Paul, who is a member of Health. We launched a search for solutions that can be deployed within the next 0 to 3 months or within 3 to 6 months. Ready, deployable solutions which are either preventive, assistive, or some may be curative in nature. Testing solutions, contact tracing solutions, software solutions, hardware solutions, medical device solutions. And the response, and this was coordinated between the Department of Science and Technology, Atal Innovation Mission, the Startup India, Invest India, as well as BIRAC, and then METI and the NASCOM and CII joined in. And we have received more than 1,800 deployable solutions for our consideration. Now, out of this, we are shortlisting the ones which can immediately be deployed, and we are identifying those which can be deployed, which needs further development and can be deployed over the next 3 to 6 months. And we have already shortlisted 178 of these for immediate consideration. Now, this is something that we would not have been able to envisage 8 or 10 years ago, as you say. And this is purely because of the focus that not only the government is having, but also the industry is having. And if you look at some of the statistics of last year, it is incredible. More than $10 billion investment has come from the private sector into the startup world in the form of investments, private equity investments, and so on. So that means there is a very strong combination of government, academia, as well as the private sector converging together. And this particular crisis, if not anything else, it has brought home the fact that when these three combine together, for example, when we are searching for the solutions, we have also asked the startups, what sort of support do you need in order to actualize the solution and then actually to deploy or scale the solution? And they've indicated a number of things. They have said, some have said, I want financial support. Some have said manufacturing support. Some have said, we want access to test labs and testing infrastructure. Some of them want regulatory support. So we then reached out to the industry, and we reached out to our partners through NASSCOM CII, who are the people who can offer such support. And we were incredibly fortunate to find a whole lot of support coming from the private sector in all of these areas. So now the task of being able to map the existing solutions that can be relevant to our COVID-19 crisis and the support that they need can be easily done. And there are many other initiatives by the government, by various departments, in fact. DSC has launched its own Kavach initiative,
Yes.
which is soliciting solutions and where they'll be able to give some grants for that actualization of the solution. BIRAC has created a consortium to search for solutions in specific areas of biotech and testing and so on. So these initiatives are all gathering steam. And you have three scenarios as I see to deal with. One is the immediate scenario of COVID-19 and how do we minimize this time required to solve it, as well as maximize the potential of being able to have safe, replicable solutions across the country. The second is post-COVID-19. We are going to have a challenge of resurrecting the economy. So what are the solutions, startup solutions that can play a role? And startups can play an incredibly beneficial role in the days ahead, in the post-COVID scenario. And finally, long-term, COVID-19 has woken us up to many other aspects of dangers lurking in the horizon, which we may not have paid attention to, like climate change or other disasters awaiting to be addressed. And this is a wake-up call for all of us to be able to address opportunities to prevent that. Whether it is in clean energy, whether it is in waste management, because any of these can become potential disasters for our country. And finally, it is also bringing fact the importance of self-reliance in our country. How do we ensure that we become self-reliant? Yes, we are a globally connected economy, but at the same time, we cannot be susceptible to supply chain disruptions across the world for the livelihoods and the lives of our own people. So how do you ensure that? So these are all some of the things that the government is focusing on in order to ensure that the startup community, which is going to be the future of our country, is going to play a role. But let me ask you, ma'am, you have been running a large incubator like IKP. What are some of the incentives, or what are some of the benefits, or what are some of the strategies that you have been using very effectively to help startups and innovative companies in the current arena?
So thank you. So you've touched upon the very important points of serving the COVID-19 problem, solving today's problem, which is how do startups remain relevant to the COVID-19 issues? How do you deal with post-COVID needs? And what are the kind of solutions that can emerge? But even before that, I think the first and the most important thing is for our startups and also our incubators. Many of our incubators are startups themselves. So for them to be viable and to be alive, if they cannot, in the short term, if they cannot remain, their businesses uh, cannot be kept alive, there is no point of thinking of solutions later. So what we immediately thought is, can we put up a small fund? It's called ICO fund, IKP COVID fund, where we would get CSR money and our own IKP trust, which is our parent company, some fund, and quickly do a call, find out who's working on which areas, map it out, pick up some solutions, put money, fund them, and let the ball roll. And then we go to, for example, Niti Aayog, we go to DST, we go to BIRAC to request all of you for co-funding. And in this process, we've been able to actually get 12 very good solutions. And it's good that we acted very quickly, and now BIRAC is also interested in co-funding some of these solutions. So what we see is, first is conserve cash. Let's, any startup that comes to us, I think we say conserve cash, make sure that you're not burning, and take this as an opportunity to survive. Make things, even if this is not your core business. A startup actually, for example, asked us, we are in the MCH space, maternal and child health space. We are not in the COVID space, infectious disease space. What do we do? I think you can still build solutions because you have some expertise in AI, you have some expertise that can be leveraged. So we really need to figure out how quickly you can build solutions around that. So we are encouraging startups to build solutions for COVID, and also trying to see how that is resilience, and then how they be agile. So resilience is one, agility is the other. How can they transform, pivot? How can they make their businesses? And we are engaging with our startups to see that happens for the post-COVID needs. So digitizing the pre-COVID business models, because a lot of workplace changes are going to happen. Incubators would be very different. We can't really think, because I'm raising the question of the point of incubators, because they have to also understand pre-COVID and post-COVID incubation itself, the models will be different. And we really need to understand these, be agile, bring up new ways of dealing with startups, engage with startups, and see that both businesses survive. We have to be sustainable, they have to be sustainable. So it's a very important walk that we are doing. We can't say that we'll subsidize all your rents, because we have to also survive. So we are trying to see how we pass on benefits to our startup, how we build businesses where they can engage themselves so that they have revenues. I think revenue, cash is what is the most important thing for our startups. So here, I just would like to also ask you, what are the initiatives of the government of India? You mentioned about the fund, but anything else that you're doing to address the crisis? Any packages or anything else, apart from, of course, solutions for COVID?
Yeah. So, what you said was very important. It is not only important for all the startups to be able to see how they can still be on a path of sustainability. One is survival, second is sustainability, and third is to thrive as a consequence of this. So, this is what this startups have to do. And of course, the government is very keen to see how it can help. So there is a forum which has been set up at the highest levels, which has been headed by Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Minister, and where Startup India, all the other players in the system, the ecosystem from the government part, as well as from the industry, they have come together to arrive at what are all the benefits that we need to immediately extend to the startup world. And so there are many benefits that can be extended in terms of tax considerations, tax reliefs that the startups can get or the incubators can get. loan considerations from SIDBI. In fact, SIDBI has launched two important schemes called CSAS, which is Startup Assistance Scheme, and they also have another sustainable scheme. You know how you can, in terms of loans that can be given. It is called SAFE, Startup for Emergency Response, assistance for emergency response. So in both of these cases, the idea is what are financial, tax-related, and other benefits which can be immediately extended to the startup world. And Atal Innovation Mission, along with all the other departments, are working to come up with a comprehensive set of measures that have been announced. More are being announced. This deliberation is still in effect. So I think all the startups should regularly be looking at the websites of Startup India, Invest India, as well as Atal Innovation Mission. We will be putting up all the links. We will be forwarding all this information as newer facilities are made available. In addition to this, what has happened is there is a great realization that this post-COVID, we are going to need new startup solutions, which are going to be very relevant for the resurrection of our economy. Now, take for example, our country is 733 districts today. We have 600,000 villages in our country. We have only 8 tier 1 cities. We have identified 100 plus smart cities in our country, but a smart city can only become smart if you have innovation happening in these smart cities in terms of education management, healthcare management, infrastructure management, smart metering, smart water management, and so on and so forth, waste management and so on. So we are working very closely with the various ministries, urban housing and development, as well as the various districts, to see what are the startup solutions that will that become even more relevant in the current situation post-COVID. And these are also being launched as challenges. For example, those of you in the startup world, though it is nothing related to COVID, but there has been a need for a video conferencing solution, which is locally done in India to be made available to the rest of the public. And so we have to ensure that such solutions are made available. And this is not related to COVID-19, but in general, because you need good online connectivity solutions and interactive solutions. So these challenges are being put forth by the various ministries. So every startup should be looking at these opportunities, challenges where there are significant grants, significant prizes to be won if you are selected. So that's the second part. The third part that I want to emphasize is there is a huge pool of resources that we are getting made available because of this crisis to address the COVID-19 solutions, but which will also be available beyond. TAI has come up together along with TAI is partnering. They have given 100 crores of grant to Invest India and Startup India to be able to help startups in not just who are providing solutions, but even beyond. So we are getting very active participation from NASSCOM and CII and FICCI in all of this. 11 empowered committees have been set up by the government, as most of you are aware. And these empowered committees can take very quick decisions at a state level, at a district level, for different industries, for manufacturing, for agriculture, for healthcare, for biotech. And there is also one which is headed by Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, and the PSA's office for getting necessary support from private sector as well as from international agencies. So these are all in effect right now, so that you are able to now look upon new opportunities in the post-COVID world, addressing uniform development of our country. You know, we had such a big problem, and we have a problem of urban migration. Almost all the people in the remote tier 2, tier 3, and the remote villages and districts all flock to the 8 tier 1 cities that we have. And that's a burden that no tier 1 city can continue to sustainably hold. So how do we ensure we create job opportunities and job creation opportunities in many, many more cities, 100 smart cities? Can they become big centers of job creation? And can every district have be self-sufficient in terms of education, healthcare management, and the local industry? So that is going to be a very strong focus by the MSME industry. So we are working also closely with the MSME industry to see that 70% of our India, which is in the MSME space, which are both formal and informal space, how do we ensure that we kickstart that portion of the economy? And again, to kickstart that, we will need rural microfinancing solutions. We will need startup solutions addressing reach, global reach and connectivity. We would like 3D printing to become more and more useful in such circumstances, so that you don't have to come to large manufacturing setups. You can do design manufacturing right at the, in front of yourself in a small setup of an MSME. So these are, how do you use technology to bridge the gap and advantageously use it for bridging the problems of transportation, connectivity, supply chain, and so on. So these are all great opportunities for startups to take care of. So with that, I want to ask you, Ms. Dipanvita, as an enabler to an industry, if you want to support, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see beyond whatever I have been saying in these times of crisis and beyond? What do you see? I mean, many startups may be thinking that, hey, it's better to go and work for some large company and sit at home and do some work. Why go through all this struggle? So what is the message that you'll give? Because I firmly believe that India's future is a world of startups. And you cannot, India's future is all about innovation and entrepreneurship going into, we cannot support 1.3 billion people with a few handful of companies. We do need thousands of companies. So what you see as the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunities that startups, you did indicate some of the challenges and how you are conservative and you can use some of your existing solutions. But we would like more thought on that.
So we did a flash survey and about over 200 startups responded to it, just to understand what challenges they are going through. And I'll just read out a few of the points which are very interesting. For example, 51% startups reported having cash to survive for 3 months or less. 51%, so half of them, and 84% would likely perish within 6 months if business does not revive. So that is a concern. So we have to really see what they can do, how do they survive. Next is around 43% startups spend more than 50% of the expenses towards salaries. So it's very important to see how they retain their people, because payment of salaries, the moment they do not have enough cash, employee turnover will become an issue, and we really need to work around that. The third point we realized is about 85% startups spend up to 25% of their expenses on rent. So I think we really need to figure out how do incubators support them in this kind of crisis. And if government can support the incubators can pass on the benefit. And it's just not about rent, it's about utilities, it's about GST and several other waivers and deferment that we are talking of. In this case, I would also like to mention that, yes, you mentioned about the SIDBI grant, but one thing that's quite important is also looking at a credit guarantee. If that credit risk guarantee is, if government can stand a guarantor, it'll become easier for our startups to get loans from the bank. So that's something that could be looked at. And the other point from the survey, it came out very clearly that 65% startups are facing problem with the place of work, of product development because of the lockdown. But this is a temporary thing, and we are trying to help in all ways to get passes and things like that. And 40% of them have supply chain issues due to lockdown. Again, this is an issue probably will slowly melt, but we need to address this about the supply chain issue. And 25% said their investors have backed out. That also is a big. We know that investments have spoken to a large number of VCs funding early stage startups. there will be a crisis in terms of new investments coming in. But even then, if you look at in April also, there have been some investments from Sequoia and Bloom and others in some areas of startups. So we are also tracking what is getting funded, where is the attention. So I think it's a multi-dimensional thing that we need to look at. One thing I have to mention to you is, as incubators, we really need to see social distancing. The successful incubators are really packed to the full. So the people that, because a lot of, we want people to interact. We say collision is important. People have to, peer learning happens only when startups, but now we are talking of social distancing. How do we manage these two conflicting things? If startups have asked us if they have to work 50% strength, alternate days people will come in. So what happens to the space? How do we, so these are issues that we will all as an industry face. We really need to put paper. We are actually putting a paper, and the question I have for you is, as an industry body, ISBA is there, the Indian Steps and Business Incubators Association, which represents a large group of startups. If we come to you with some solution, is there some, what would be the best way to actually voice our concerns? And when we say incubators and science parks, voicing the concern, will be talking on behalf of startups and behalf of the incubation industry. So is there anything that you could let us know? How do we take this conversation forward?
Excellent. I think it is first of all wonderful that industry is coming together to be able to address not only their problem but also the problems of startup, because they have realized to some extent, because of this crisis, the need for innovation and the need for them to be able to support the startup world. And associations like ISBA or CII and NASSCOM, they have very proactively come to approach us. Of course, all of these Athal Innovation Mission, Startup India, and Invest India are areas where you can approach. There is a business immunity portal that has been created on Startup India and Invest India portals. People should log on to that. In the business immunity platform, which has been created, you can register what solution you have that needs support. You can say what support you need, whether you need manpower support, whether you need financial support, you need some grant support or loan support, and so on and so forth. So whatever support you need can be registered there. Also, that platform is a place where industry can register and say, we are willing to offer this support. So all the support categories have been identified there. So it would be great if both industry and the startups register themselves on the business immunity platform and be able to share their requirements and their uniqueness, and it gives an exposure to the industry and the investment community for them to say, hey, this is a startup that I would like to support and go forward. So this is a very important platform. Of course, please do feel free to write to Athal Innovation Mission. You can directly write to anyone whom you are already connected to in the Athal Innovation Mission, or you could write to me at r.ramanan@gov.in. By the way, my mobile number, everything is on the website, so I don't have any control now on both my email as well as my mobile number. I also think that
Yes.
touching on a point that you said, there are three things. One is, how do you ensure that you remain sustainable over the next 6 months? Because I'm sure within the next 6 months, things will ease, and you have to be able to see how you can survive during this time. And during these times, there are three things which are very important. Number one, you have to prioritize on what you want to focus on in order to ensure that you're able to survive with your team. Of course, a committed team is not going to give up so easily, and startups have very committed teams. So I'm sure the teams will become, there is a need for innovation within the startups themselves now, more than the innovation output that they are creating. They have to be very innovative on how we can start prioritizing whatever we are doing. Second is the important point that you said, that there may be some component of theirs which is very relevant either for a solution required now or immediately post-COVID, the solution will be required. So there may be an AI component, there may be a technology component, there may be some algorithm that you have developed related to supply chain and so on. These can become very useful to focus on because they will have immediate deployment and thereby an immediate source of revenue. So that is another thing that, and we'll be very happy to entertain suggestions on that. The third is, like you said, we have to maintain social distancing and so on and so forth. So how do we bridge this gap of the need to collaborate and communicate and at the same time be able to, practice the safeguard that is required? And many companies, I think those who are associated with the knowledge economy, they are finding it easier because you're able to, in fact, my team is a lot more productive right now and and they're all working from home and they're doing a great job, a fantastic job and probably doing a lot more work than before. So one has to see how to leverage digital technology and collaborative tools to enable that. But I also think that this is an opportunity to think of new ways of networking with each other to provide the necessary support. There may be some things which you are doing which somebody else can help you on and vice versa. So I think this is the big advantage, that this incubation network, like what we have created in Atal Innovation Mission, where people can reach across to each other and help out each other. This is the time when we learn the value of collaboration, not within just the confines of your incubator, but across incubators and across the ecosystem. And we are very fortunate today that we are well connected in this ecosystem. For instance, I was talking to the DST. We are at this point in time, while each of the departments like DST, DBT, BIVAC have launched their own initiatives, what we have come to an agreement is that we will identify all solutions which have a promise. And even if your budget is not allowing you to go beyond a certain number of startups to be supported, let's identify solutions which merit that consideration. And then together we pool our resources and find out from another resource how we can deploy and help out that particular startup, even if it is not within your ecosystem. So this is going to be a powerful multiplier of the support enablement to all the startups. So I just want everyone to know about that. So with that, should we throw it open to question answers from the public? I think it's already 40 minutes into the conversation. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yes.
Malika.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for the very arcane and intriguing comments actually in the past 40 minutes. I would now like to call Mr. Apurv. He has a question for you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for the session. This is Apur from AIC Goa Institute of Management. My question here is that almost all our incubatees, current incubatees, they are whatever they are working is not related to COVID-19, and for them, sustainability is now a question. So, any measures you could suggest, ma'am, through which we can ensure that they're sustainable for a longer period of time? Because of course, cash crunch and cash flow is a big question currently. So, any measures you are currently taking at this point of time?
So thanks, Apur, for the question. This has come to me from so many places. How will we survive? There's a saying that we are all dead in the long run. So it's all about, we should make sure that we survive now, and then we can do all our planning. So I would think, if it is possible, best is to, if some of your startups are not directly able to produce something for a COVID relevance solution, team together, team up. There's tremendous strength in teaming up and building solutions. And I am seeing that happening within our incubation fold, that 2 startups have come together, 3 startups are coming together to actually Some have maybe AI knowledge, some would have other mechanical engineering knowledge. I think this is the time to actually put together solutions. And there, I think the incubator plays a big role. You know, you have to come in as a leader and say, hey guys, we can do this. Let's rally and see if we can build a solution around this. There are lots of solutions that are available on the net. If you have a 3D printer, so our Mangalore center is actually developing a hand sanitizer dispenser, a foot operated, very simple. Anyone with a simple knowledge can do it. And they've already supplied, I think, over 100 pieces within Mangalore itself. Government offices are taking. So we have startups who are giving incubation, and our incubator is making it, and along with startups, just building. So intubation box. Basically, when your doctor is ICU is intubating a patient, it is safe to have a box around that. And the solution came from a hospital, and we are quickly making it. I think the incubator CEOs and managers have to just say, yes, this is a time to be the leader, you know. You have to say, hey guys, this kind of solution is available. Let's find out, let's team up. If all of us can produce, all of us survive. So it's I think a collaborative effort is necessary, Apurv. And we can take this offline of how we can develop it. But I think we really need to put together solutions. All startups will not be working in the COVID areas. There are adjacencies. See, automotive industry was never doing ventilators. Today I read Airbus is doing ventilators. When was Airbus doing ventilators, tell me? So if such large companies with huge bureaucracies can overcome, startups are much more agile, much smarter, they will be able to do it. We can brainstorm and get fantastic solutions. Yes, Mr. Ramanan.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. This is the time. This is the time for collective deliberation within an incubator world. And I mean, you have to come. If this is a great opportunity. Also, you have to look at it as, okay, now I have a product, but that product is, I'm not able to sell it right now because this is not the time that I'm able to sell the product in the shape that it is or in the form that it is now. But this solution has been formed with all these components in the solution. Now, what is it that I can pivot to using the components that I have already created, or maybe adding some adjacencies, as Ms. Dipanvita said, or in collaboration with another. I have created this, you have created that, let's put together this, and this becomes a product relevant to the times. And this is a solution that is in demand. You know what the demands are right now in terms of what the market needs. So how do you pivot from where you are to a new solution, which is not going to be very difficult, but which is going to give you a source of revenue, and which is going to give a source of satisfaction also to you, that you are addressing some problem. So there is, in everything that you're doing, if you're using 3D printing for creating something else, as she said, can you use the 3D printing to create a solution for preventive equipment, PPE equipment, for ventilator equipment? I saw just today an example, which is, I think, out there in the net, where one guy has devised a key in a 3D printer, and in the United States, and that key can lift things, and it can you stop having contact with various sources of infection. And now 300,000 of those keys are being printed by a large manufacturer, and he is in business. So you have to see, and this is the time when you can be most creative, but that creativity will come out of, as Dipanvita said, with collaboration, with discussion, with some deliberation, daily deliberation. It won't strike you immediately. You may come up with a blank saying, no, there is no way I can do this. But you are at it, and an intersection of ideas and an intersection of creative thoughts will lead you to a solution which you can create and which can help you survive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We also have another question from Mr. Karthik.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for this session so far. My name is Karthikeyan. I am from AIC AAU Incubator, Assam Agriculture University. We are based out of Jorhat, and primarily our entrepreneurs are from agriculture and allied agriculture sector. And currently, a lot of things that you mentioned so far is already being discussed. Uh, but our entrepreneurs typically, since they are working, it's all about field work. Uh, they had their business plans, which suddenly came to a grinding halt, and they are so much right now at loggerheads, crossroads, not knowing where to kickstart it all over again from. So while they did a little rejig on supply chain, trying to leverage it by coordinating with others, here literally it's come to an entire it's like a grinding halt it's come to. Any tips you can give to them, because logistics in Northeast is so different, and we cater to the entire Northeast. Our incubator caters to the entire Northeast here. Any tips that you have that comes to your mind?
Karthik, again, it's about collective survival. So it's not about, I think if you have, I'm just guessing, if you have 10 startups, can you see what's the complementarity that they have and map it out, map the requirement in Northeast, because Assam has COVID cases. Assam, even if it's not COVID, there can be mental stress. There can be requirement of people not able to come out of home because and this fear of lockdown, the fear of getting the disease. So there can be several other issues that would be important and can I would think the startups have to come together in terms of doing thought experiments of what they can devise themselves to ease out and help people around. So it could be local food delivery. I saw that there's an app that's helping the
Yeah, we
kirana
did that.
shop actually. Yeah, so you know that, so there is so yes, there are so many simple solutions that can be implemented, especially because supply chain is hit and there will be problems of people traveling, so families meeting, and so around a lot of so in Assam there'll be now monsoon coming. That will be an added problem, so communication will suffer even more. So if you could also talk to IIT Guwahati and see if they need interns. I'm just thinking aloud, you know, it's like you've given me a problem and I'm trying to brainstorm, and I'd love to do that with you. So we can really figure out which are the places in Assam. If we can find out 10 places, we'll quickly link each other and say, okay, hey, can we develop 4 solutions? All incubate, does not matter which incubator, who, as long as the startup survive, we all survive. Mr. Ramana, please.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I just want to add to this. One of the things that we launched in India, I mean, through Atal Innovation Mission, is what is known as Atal Community Innovation Centers, and we saw this very important need. While most of the startups and incubators are naturally there in tier 1 cities, tier 2, tier 3, and underserved, unserved regions of India are not getting benefited because of the innovation or even having an ecosystem for innovation. And so we are setting up these Atal Community Innovation Centers across India, and we plan to set up about 150 of them over the next 3-4 years. 24 are already selected for deployment, and they are in the process of due diligence now, and within the next 3 months, they will get their first grants. And this Community Innovation Center is a collaboration between the applicant as well as the private sector and the government. So it's not a one-way street where we are just giving a grant of 2.5 crores. There's going to be another matching grant which is being provided by the partners leveraging CSR funds and so on. Now, the whole idea of this Community Innovation Center is threefold. Number one, how do you create innovations locally meeting the needs of the community in and around that community where it is located, in a particular district, if you're in Northeast, if you're in Assam, in Jorhat, what are the needs of the community around that are, screaming for a solution, and how do you ensure that an innovation addresses that? And you may have innovations which are already developed somewhere else. So how do we replicate it? So that is one. And how do you convert Jugaad innovation, which has been found in all of these places? How do you systematize it and create into a robust, replicable innovation? Now, I think, just following what Ms. Dipanvita said, if you, at this point in time, as Jorhat Incubator, connect yourself with, let us say, 5 or 6 other institutions in and around your place, and 5 or 6 industry participants, from the industry. Talk to, there may be 4 or 5 industries, companies which are there, form a network, have a joint deliberation saying, hey, we want to collectively address this. We have a bunch of very interesting startups here, very bright guys. We are looking at problems that you want immediately to be addressed and to be solved. And together we can come to an understanding of taking up these solutions, or maybe a combination of the solutions that we have, as she said, or develop a new solution that is required and relevant to the community. I think this is the time when, if you bring together multiple stakeholders in the system, not just looking at your incubator, but looking at 5 or 6 institutions, everybody has that same problem. But together you will be able to identify 5 or 6 very important things that need immediate addressal, and that will give an opportunity for sustainability of your startups also.
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. We just did something like that. I'll share that with you on an email. Thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you. We have another question from Mr. Srinivas.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir and ma'am. This question is more for the startups. Like we were in the process of incubating some of the new startups, and just before COVID, they had prepared the plan, and now in this situation, they're at the crossroads. So, like whether they need to take it the startup way forward, and as Ramanan sir said, or to look for a safer employment. So, any tips that you can share with us so that we can guide them more effectively?
So I would say, this is too short a time frame to give up on your dream or to give up on your hope that your startup is not going to succeed. It is a crisis. We all agree to it. And it is a crisis which has come down completely without any expectation from anybody. Nobody thought 2 months ago that we would be landing in this situation. But first of all, I want startups to be extremely confident about themselves and to be able to rough it out during this very difficult time. You have to be able to stick to your dream because there is potential in that dream down the road. And that's not very far off. It's just a matter of maybe a couple of more months, 4 or 5 months. Human ingenuity is fantastic. I'm sure there is going to be a solution, if not a medicine to address it, a vaccine to address it. Something will come up. The whole human race, the finest scientists in the world are at work, and and they're all globally connected. So you cannot come up with a quick solution, with a solution which is going to come up fairly quickly and which will be even more, I would say, permanent, because they would know that we don't want such a thing to happen again. But in the meantime, I do request that you avail of all these things that we are talking about. You have to, as an incubator manager, you have to be very much aware of all the schemes that the government is doing to be able to support startups. This is one. So it is your responsibility to reach out. We will help you in the process. Reach out to Atal Innovation Mission and anybody else in the ecosystem. But first, be fully aware of what are the possibilities. Number two, look at where you want to prioritize. Your solutions, you have to prioritize for the existence of the startup. What are the essential things that you want to focus on? What are some of the things where you can reduce your expenses and reduce your burdens, which is not going to be immediately effective, but which can be productively used for something else? So that is the second. Third is link yourself up with multiple players, not only within your own incubator, but across incubators, across the Atal Innovation Mission Network and beyond, so that you are able to, there is a saying, team, together everybody achieves more. So teamwork in such a situation is going to be tremendously helpful. So that's the third thing. And the fourth is try to pivot your existing components of the solution to something that may be relevant within the next 6 to 9 months that can create a channel of revenue for yourself. So all of these have to be put in place, but I would not urge anybody to lose their dream or give up their dream at this point in time. And in the meantime, I can assure you from our side as Atal Innovation Mission, we will have a deliberation with every incubator along with their startups on what we can do to facilitate this entire.
So that's very encouraging, Mr. Ramanan. Srinivas, which city or which district are you in? Where are you?
We are in Ahmedabad and we are currently in the
Ahmedabad. Okay. So, startups, at least 90% of them have started their business because they have a dream to chase. They are different. They are not the like ordinary people who are satisfied very easily with whatever they get. So they also have resilience. They know how to survive, and your job, Srinivas, I have not met you, but if you, at least I can tell you that don't let the dream die. You have to be the shoulder for them to cry. You have to be the shoulder to say, hey, this is possible. We will make it together. So I think a lot more engagement from your side will be required to keep that enthu up. So if you keep it up for some time, they will know. It is only those small, the troughs and cusps that startups, because they face in any case very large number of valleys of death. And this may be one, this may be unprecedented, but a startup journey is replete with all these kind of valleys of death, and they would harden themselves. This is not the best way to harden oneself, but yes, it has come, and they will survive. 90% of them have that special thing in them to survive because they have taken this risk. It's a risk they have taken. It's a dream they are pursuing. So help them. And there are other incubators. We can talk about it. It need not be part of this group, that group. I think we are all in this game together. I think the first and foremost thing is don't work in silos. Just give up that idea of working in silos.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Srinivas.
Thank you, sir. I think we are on the clock and we've finished exactly on time. I'll request everyone else, if they have any other questions, they can either email it to us and we'll get back to you on that.
So, Malika, thanks for facilitating, and I want to once again thank everybody in the audience for participating in this. I just want to end with three statements from two great people whom I am a fan of. One is Abdul Kalam. You know, he said, "Dream big, and you'll achieve great things. Dream small, and you will achieve small things." And this is the time for us to dream a little bigger than even normal. He also said a very significant thing. There is no such word as failure in the startup world or in anybody's world for that matter. He said the word fail is the first attempt in learning. So this is a new learning for us. This is a stress test for all of us. COVID-19 has brought in a very unexpected and unprecedented manner a huge challenge for us. But there is learning in this. And how do we use this learning to our advantage? That is what we all have to look at. And the second thing that I want to say is Swami Vivekananda has said, if you have belief in 1,000 gods and goddesses, but do not have belief in yourself, you're doomed. And I really would like us to apply that at this point in time. We have to have a tremendous belief in ourselves, confidence in ourselves. We should, as he said, you know, he also said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. You have started on your startup journey, and that startup journey had a goal. So do not stop until that goal is reached. Yes, there is a blimp on the way. There is this unexpected mountain that we have to cross, but together we can do that. And we are all there to support you in this journey. All of us who are tied up in the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem are there to support in the journey. So I would encourage every one of you to do that. And God bless every one of you on this journey. Yes, Ms. Dipanuta, if you want to add anything to that.
Sorry, you've summed it up so well. I have nothing to add to this. Just be patient. All bad times pass. So just that resilience is required. We'll make it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the inspiring words in the end. I'd like to thank all the participants here and especially our audience on YouTube who've joined us for the session. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.